SoulSpeak Living in Color, where we talk about inspirations, following your dreams, and what lights your fire. I'm your host, Sam Philyaw, Rainbow and Thunder voiceover. You can find me at samphilyawvo.com. Hello and welcome to SoulSpeak Living in Color. Today we have the wonderful Brian Cook with us. He's a broadcast engineer by day and a voiceover artist by night. I don't know exactly in that order, but you get the idea. So that is no easy feat, and we're going to talk about how he balances that stuff. We're going to talk about some inspirational stuff that he's got for us today. So Brian does a variety of voiceover, commercial, narration, character. If you like a good Stitch or Joker impression, you should check out his social medias, which, by the way, you can find him by ibcook.vo on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and ibcookvo on YouTube and Twitter. And make sure the first one is a dot, the other one doesn't have the dot. I'll be putting that in the blog post in the description on YouTube, so that way make it a little bit easier for you guys. He does have a linked tree, link, so it'll go directly to all of his stuff, so that makes it super fantastically easy. All right, so without further ado, Brian, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you here so you can talk about all the cool stuff that I know that we're going to be discussing for everybody. I've seen a lot of your TikToks. They're really awesome. You have some great impressions.
Thank you.
Before we get into that, we'll be talking about that later. First, what do you do as a broadcast engineer?
Keep everything on the air, I guess is the best way to put it. We do everything from taking care of the regular computers that everybody uses, to the video servers that we use for playing out commercials, for playing out video clips for the newscasts. We actually do local news as well. So we do about 10 hours of local news per day, because we actually hub our local market and 2 other markets out of our building.
So yeah, it's a lot of busy work, especially at the computer, right?
Oh yeah. And I actually came in at a really good time, because broadcasting, especially in our area, northern Indiana, we were in the process of going from the old medias, tape, reel-to-reel stuff like that, to all digital. So now I don't think we have a tape player in our station, period. It's all on hard drives, servers.
Yeah, that's kind of considered vintage now, huh?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, even when it comes to radio, CDs are considered vintage. I know that most radio stations keep a couple CD players still in the rack just because they have, need to have that backup option. But radio stations, all their song catalogs are on hard drives.
Well, I must be considered old school because I still have about 1,500 CDs in this house somewhere. I still have a whole bunch of DVDs and CDs from the time I was like 10 to through college.
Oh yeah, I still do too. I actually still have the what was it, like the first 5 or 10 Now CDs that they put out way back when.
Yeah, me too. I've got several of those, but they're still good. It's good music. Never gets old. So how did you get into being a broadcast engineer?
I actually have an IT background. That's what I went to college for, and was working at a small IT consulting firm, and saw that this, job posting was available. They were looking for someone, I thought, it's just a shot in the dark. I'll submit my resume. Didn't hear anything, and about, I think it was 6, 7 months later, finally got a call back. And it turns out that they had been looking for a broadcast engineer, or someone who was, already in the broadcast world with an IT background, because they knew they were making this transition to old school media, to computer media,
Mhm.
and they weren't having any luck. So they flip-flopped the requirements and started looking for someone with an IT background that they could teach broadcast engineering. And that's where I came in.
Nice. So you kind of just got on this on a whim then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that
And that,
funny how a lot of things that happen that way end up being some of the coolest jobs?
yeah, it's rarely ever the same day. That's all that needs to be said.
That sounds like fun to me.
It is. It keeps you on your toes.
So, what do you most like about that career?
The people that I work with, the people that I get to see grow in the industry, the constant change in technology. Not only did we, go from, like I said, CDs and video cassettes to hard drives, but we've also gone from the old satellite trucks that you used to see with the huge towers that they would put up, to backpacks that do the same thing with, half a dozen to a dozen cell connections packed into it. So yeah, all of our photographers go out with these backpacks and use the cell phone service that we all have grown to love and rely on,
Hmm.
for their live shots. Now it's no more satellite trucks, no more point to point, you know vans with these giant towers sticking out of them.
Wow. Shows how much I know about that. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's there are things that have progressed over the last uh 10, 15 years, that it's just amazing how much we don't have to lug around with us anymore.
Technology at its finest. So, I imagine being a broadcast engineer kind of got you. I don't want to say a foot in the door, but kind of got you thinking about voiceover. I imagine you dealt with that a lot.
Yeah, when I first came aboard, back in 2007, the company that I worked for was actually a television station and radio station. So we had both sides of the entertainment coin, if you will. And yeah, made friends with a lot of radio talent, and it was just always something that really interested me. I did do speech and theater in school, and I never really thought of that as an option. I always, was the goofy one that would throw out the voices here and there, and I used that as a entry to, gain friends and, conversation. I was always trying to be the comedian, I guess, if you will.
Right. So you
Um,
were the kind of person who was the clown in the classroom.
yeah, tried to be
Yeah.
anyways.
You seem like you have a very calm, introverted type of demeanor.
Yeah, and that was part of the problem. Even now, I mean, back in junior high and high school, when I was on stage, um, I did have a rough time actually getting on stage the first couple of years, but eventually I got over that fear. I am still a very reserved person, but
Mhm.
when push come to shove, I will interact with people. I mean, it's just part of the job. You can't spread joy unless you're willing to interact with others. And I know social media has kind of taken a foothold in everybody's lives. And I know that there is some interaction, not necessarily face to face, but um, getting that interaction through social media has definitely boosted my confidence. Um, sorry, I'm going on so many
No,
tangents.
no, I get it. It's definitely a tough thing to overcome. It's kind of like a lot of people have a fear of judgment, and that's a big thing for people in school who have that type of personality.
Yeah,
So you try to become something that you think other people are going to like, right?
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing that really sticks out in my mind, I was on our high school speech team and did radio for that as well. And actually um, wrote some commercials that I thought were just goofy off the wall and wouldn't get anything, accomplished except for checking all the teachers' boxes so I could get a decent grade. Turns out the commercials that I wrote uh, got a huge reaction from the classes. And I was actually asked to come back in for a couple of the other speech classes and use my commercials as examples as to what the teacher was looking for.
That's awesome. Heck yeah. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
So up until this point, how long have you been doing voiceover?
I started voiceover about 4 years ago, and really didn't know what I was doing. Jumped into it headfirst. Also, didn't have a really good support system at the time. So I was on my own and trying to do that, and didn't know where to go, didn't take the time to do research and figure things out for myself. I know everybody, that's one of the questions, everybody asks, how did you get into voiceover? Well, everybody's journey is different.
Right.
So yeah, my journey in my mind started about 5 years ago, and lasted about 6 months. I was able to get one paying job at the time and nothing else. So there were some other things going on. And because it was just at the time, my attempt to have another side job, I just let it go and packed everything away until, within the last year. And then started doing research, started reading, started building networks, have a great support system behind myself now. Couldn't be doing this without my family. That's for darn sure. And so yeah, now I'm plugging ahead and hoping to make this my full-time job.
That's awesome. So you started with no support. You said, I'm still going to do this. I don't care. And then eventually you gained what you needed.
Yep.
That's fantastic. Tell me about your dream role. You've been in this a little long. You're doing it pretty well, looks like. So what would be the ultimate yes for you?
I think a lot of people have this dream, especially in the industry, but some kind of character that I can call my own, some kind of long running series. I mean, to be a person like Nancy Cartwright or Hank Azaria, be part of the Simpsons and have that many years of a run as, half a dozen to a dozen different characters that are a part of you. That would be awesome. But I'm also okay with just having a single shot character. I mean, I've gone to, I'm a huge science, sci-fi, fantasy, comic book, anime person as well. So I see all the reactions that people in the industry get at conventions now. I mean, there are characters that are just in movies that people, you know, this work can affect people in so many different ways. I guess going back to your question, I don't really need a single role as long as I'm constantly paying it forward and bringing joy, support, and comfort to somebody else by doing what I'm doing.
That's awesome. So you guys, you got to follow Brian Cook. He's looking to inspire somebody and bring joy into somebody's life. It's not often you get people who are like that. Not in today's society.
Yeah. And I mean, my personal journey over the last 5 to 6 years, it's been rough, and I know how we can all get wrapped up in being somebody we don't want to be.
Putting on a mask and then having trouble taking it off after wearing it for so years. I know the feeling.
Exactly. And I finally feel like this is my permanent mask. This is who I want to be. This is who I am. I don't put on masks anymore. The characters that I perform and become are part of me.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, I'm done with using masks.
I love it. We're done with using masks. Fuck a mask.
Yeah.
All right. That's a good punchline. Whew. All right. So I mean, well, me being on this self-discovery journey that I've been on for like 2 or 3 years now, it's really been deep with me for the last year on, because I had started out trying to find my brand, which thankfully is out now and we're loving it. But up until that point, I was like, who am I? I don't know this person that I've been wearing for the last 10, 15 years.
You're a passenger in life.
Right. I was not doing what I wanted to do. And so I was just dissociative. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. I've seen so many people give their stories and it's so similar to that. And I love that now that everybody is concerned with mental health, awareness, and all of these great things that are leading to everybody figuring out who they are and coming into their own authenticity. We are all taking off the masks. I love it.
Exactly.
So tell me about some other passions. I know that we had briefly spoken about you're a mental health advocate. You have 3 kids, right?
Yes.
A couple of other hobbies. So tell me a little bit about all this.
Well, like you alluded to, I had my own self journey about 5 or 6 years ago, and through the process learned a lot about myself, learned that self-love is not something that should be shamed or you should be ashamed of, because you can't love others unless you love yourself. You can't love anybody else properly unless you love yourself first. I know we don't always like ourselves, but you have to have that self-love, or otherwise you're just, again, going to be wearing a mask.
I mean, it's not like you don't always like the person that you're going to be with.
Right.
You don't have
Right.
to always like yourself, but you got to love yourself.
Right. And that's actually a phrase that gets thrown around in our house. we always say, I don't like you right now, but I will always love you.
That's funny.
And we try to teach our kids that, you don't always like yourself at a given moment because of something that you might have done that negatively affected yourself or somebody else, but you should always love yourself and those, closest to you.
I wish more people understood that sentiment. You got to
Mhm.
find within yourself the love that you sometimes have to create. Sometimes you have to change who you are for yourself to even begin to love yourself.
Yeah.
And that's important because I don't feel like you could truly love somebody else without understanding and loving yourself.
Yep. Yep. And that's what we're definitely trying to instill in our kids. We have a son who's 17, um, and then we have two beautiful daughters, 9 and 7. They're all great kids, all special in their own way. So hopefully they have better tools than what we did growing up.
Hey, that's the whole
Emotionally.
point of having kids, right? You teach them all the good things and sometimes the bad things, all the
Yeah.
things that you wish you knew at that age.
Yeah, and honestly, we're actually teaching our parents. I mean, I don't know how many times in the last couple of years, my parents have told me, I wish that we knew what you know now, because we would have done things differently with you kids than what actually happened.
And
And
that's
the fact,
okay.
yeah, but the fact that they're realizing that just shows how much they truly do love us kids.
It also shows how human they are. Everybody
Mhm.
makes mistakes,
Yeah,
and
that's
it's growing from those and understanding that you don't know everything. Sometimes when you're 60, 70 years old, you see what your kids are doing with their kids and you're like, wow, I
yeah,
kind of wish that I knew that.
yeah, yeah. And it takes a lot of strength to admit that, you know.
Good on them. So that's a huge age gap for your kids. Does the older brother play the protector for the little ones?
Yeah, most of the time. Um, he he does love them, but he also gets annoyed by them. But that's typical sibling.
Mhm.
But yes, he is big protector. And they love the fact that they have a big brother that is willing to do that for them.
That's awesome. It's nice when you have that family unity, you know. It's like you just
Hmm.
said, you don't have to always like them, but you always got to love them, and
Yep.
siblings are the epitome of that statement.
Oh yes, they are.
Oh man. So tell me about your life as it is with trying to balance your full-time job as a broadcast engineer and trying to make it even part-time as a voice actor, because we all know that that is extremely difficult to
Oh
do,
yeah,
especially
it
with a
has.
family.
Oh yeah, definitely. Um, well, for one, I wasn't expecting to be reading and researching so much to accomplish what I've accomplished right now. But that's one of the things that I absolutely love. My wife she's like, don't take this as me complaining, but good grief, you have a lot of books. Like, and I'm like, well, it's helping me in the process. And as far as balancing everything, it is difficult, and I'm learning mechanisms not only on my own, but the great community that we have on TikTok, picking up little tips here and there from everybody else and integrating those into my life. And then like I've said before, having a support system. My wife said, "Are you doing okay? You seem kind of off. You seem really stressed out. Is there something I can do to help you?" And we started talking about it, and it just came to a point where I had to take a little time away from TikTok and dealing with my other social medias, and not be a creator for the last, about a week. Just be a patron and deal with everything else that's going on. My full-time job, we're deep into some huge projects, so that's been taking up a lot of my time. Dealing with family, always takes up a lot of time, and trying to find that balance. I haven't found a good balance yet, but I'm working on it. I'm also using tools now that I wasn't a month ago to try and further the voice acting career. And it's helping me get organized. It's helping me plan things out. The kids actually are starting to get into my routine. So I actually am starting to set aside time to do specific things. So I sat down with everybody and said, hey, this is what I need to do, and this is the time I'm going to take to do it. So don't feel bad. I'm not trying to take time away from family. I'm not trying to ignore you, but this is important to me, and I need this time away from everybody else to get this done. And they have been very accepting and very supportive of it all.
That's awesome. I think that's how a family should be. Still want to be around them. You just got to be able to focus. So tell us a little bit about what you do on TikTok.
Well, originally I started TikTok just to see what the heck it was. And now I have, for the last month and a half, have done a Joker's joke of the day. Done my best to try and do that every day, but because I needed to take a break, didn't quite accomplish that this past week. But also started up a segment I call Stitching Inspiration, that I read off a inspirational quote using my Stitch impression. So those are my two bits right now. I have some others in the works. I actually have a couple collabs coming up that I'm working with others on. Some of the other TikTokers that are out there will be joining me on some collabs that I hope to have out within the next couple 3 weeks. So yeah, just trying, like I said before, paying it forward and making the world a better place with my voice in some shape or form.
That's awesome. I saw that you also post your videos that you do from like the Stitch inspirations and the Joker's joke of the day. I saw that also on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that. So that's some great social media marketing.
Yeah, I've tried to do that. I haven't kept up with Twitter or Instagram or YouTube. I haven't figured out a way to really utilize Twitch yet, but I probably will at some point in time. But yeah, I've been, in the beginning, I tried to keep up the cross-platform posting, and it just kind of became too much in the last couple of weeks. So when it comes to YouTube, for sure, I'm going to start doing a weekly post of both segments, the jokes of the day and the inspiration. So you've got a little bit longer video, because those videos on TikTok at max are like 30 seconds. So I wanted to give, like I said, just a week worth of rundown on YouTube, and we'll see what goes from there. I actually have one thing posted on YouTube that I don't have it completely posted because of the length on any other social media. A friend from Chicago actually did a fan film and asked me to provide the voice of the Joker character. He wrote a script. It was based on a comic book series where there was a Batman Joker and Spider-Man Carnage crossover. And so he wrote up a script for Spider-Man and Joker's introduction and asked me to voice it. So that's out on YouTube. Firecracker 44 is the gentleman that put the video together and shot it.
Nice. Do a Joker impression for me.
Well. You don't know exactly what to say when you're prompted, but you give it your best shot.
Fantastic. I love it. I've seen several videos of the Stitch inspirations, and which is great because I've always done a Stitch impression too throughout my entire life. I love doing Stitch. And then your Joker is on point. That's
Thank you.
great.
Thank you. A lot of people tell me that, and I know Mark Hamill has changed his Joker throughout the years, and I guess the best way to I don't think of it as an impression. I think of it as my interpretation, and it's almost, to me, it's a mix between his Arkham Joker and the gentleman that did the Joker for the Batman animated series that ran, I want to say, like early 2000s. Um, that's what I consider my interpretation, kind of a mix between the two. I don't hear as much, I guess, personally, of the Hamill as everybody else does, but Hamill has made that his baby over the years, and that's that. You ask pretty much any person who voices the Joker, and that's who they jump to.
Makes sense. So what are some life goals and dreams that you have? Doesn't have to be voiceover, doesn't have to be anything specific, but like just some goals and dreams.
Um, Goals and dreams. Well, definitely to make voiceover my full-time job, but also uh, help our kids find what they want to do with life, um, help them in any shape and form possible, because they need a support system. I know how key it is to have a good support system, because I've been without support systems before, and I know what happens. So I as a parent, my wife and I want to be able to give them the opportunities and tools that they need to do what they want to do with their life, and just enjoy life as much as possible. I mean, whether it's taking a trip or whether it's, I guess I really haven't thought about, you know, there are lots of places that I would like to visit throughout the world, but it's not something that I absolutely have to do. I'm more focused on living my best life now, because I can't look into a crystal, none of us can look into a crystal ball and see what the future holds. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but I just don't really have any
No,
major.
I think that we get the idea. You want to help your kids get through life and have a great support system. You want to be there for them, help
Yeah,
them figure out what they want to do, which is what I'm doing. My podcast is all about dreams and inspirations and passions, and trying to help people figure out what they want to do with their life, who they want to be, and maybe find a role model in one of my guests.
I, gue-
But
I guess the I guess the best way to put it would be create a good legacy to pass on. Because if we support our kids and teach them these things to help better themselves, then in turn, hopefully they will pass that on to their kids, and so on and so forth. And just, the ripple effect, that hopefully, down the line, the world will be a better place because our kids will influence other people. And, you know, just that kind of mentality, the whole pay it forward, pass it on.
I love it. And that's something that other people outside of your immediate family can also look up to, you know? It's not just something that you pass on down your generational line. It's something you pass on to a lot of other people who don't even know you personally. And I think that's the amazing thing about being able to interact and have people see what you're doing and give them, the inspirational quotes and tell them about what you're doing in voiceover, voicing awesome characters that they grow up with. That would be amazing. So we're creating legacies, you and I.
Yeah.
So speaking of role models and inspirations, is there anyone that you consider a role model for yourself? If not, it's okay, because I'm in the same boat. But
yeah, not anybody in particular. I mean, definitely my parents. They've had a huge influence on the person I am today. But I mean,
so what inspires you to do what you're doing?
The fact that doing what I do makes me happy, and I know how that kind of feeling is needed in this world. Other people should be happy as well, and
you want to share it.
Yeah, that's all there is to it. I want to share it. I want to pass on the joy that I create, or the joy that I have. I want to be able to pass that on to whoever, and just make the world a better place, one person at a time, somehow, some way.
That's awesome. And that's even his tagline currently. Everybody, making the world a better place with my voice, which is perfect. I think that's kind of perfect. This whole conversation, I know we haven't really met or talked before. I had sent out an invite for my podcast, but I can tell you're being pretty genuine. It's almost rare to find someone who actually wants to cultivate and then share their wins and joy and laughter and goodness. Because you're right, there is a lot of depression and sadness in the world. And the world needs someone who can laugh all day.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not all day, but
right.
You get my point.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the other day I sat down with our son, and I hadn't had a chance to go over some things with him, and he actually sat down and went through some auditions that I had done, and he's like, "Seriously, Dad, you did this? This is you?" And I was like, "Yeah, son, it was just, what I decided to do." He's like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know you had this in you. This is amazing. This is awesome." And just started going off, how much that brought him joy, listening to just some of the auditions that I've done recently. I mean, it's one thing to get that kind of praise from, everybody outside of your family circle, but for teenager especially to come back and say,
your own kid.
yeah. I mean, our girls, because they're still pretty young, not to diminish their input, but I mean, for a 17-year-old to come back and say, "Oh my gosh, you are an amazing person." We've all been teenagers at one point in time, and we know how much of a pain in the butt we can be for our parents. And how disrespectful we can be because we think we know everything and this and that. It was very eye-opening for me to see him react like that, and it was
That's pretty awesome.
Really cool.
Not gonna lie, I never showed any enthusiasm when I was a teenager, so that's pretty amazing to me.
Right, and he usually doesn't. It's I mean, we're like, are you okay? Are you happy? Oh yeah, yeah, I'm really enjoying this. Okay, well, you're not like jumping for joy like
You're
your
just like,
sisters. Well, yeah, because I'm 17 and I'm not a 9-year-old. Sorry, Dad.
oh my gosh, that's great. So we're gonna wrap up here in a few minutes. Before we do that, do you have any advice for people who are in the same boat as you, doing all the things and trying to balance life, work, family, hobbies, and possibly getting burnt out on it all?
Um, yeah, try and know yourself as best as possible. Um, but also rely on feedback from those around you, because one of my flaws in the past, and I've gotten better, um, is I've been blind to what I've been going through and have just kept pushing through. Do your research, do your reading, but it all comes down to you've got to be able to know your tell signs. Don't be afraid of feedback from family and friends. Um, like I said, this past week, everything just came to a head, and my wife was like, something's not right. You don't seem like you're enjoying things like you were last week. So definitely pay attention to your tell signs, but also pay attention to those who are supporting you and who love you. um, Talk with them on a regular basis. Say, hey, do I seem different to you? Ask for feedback. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback, because no question is ever dumb when it comes to trying to get into voiceover. um, Go out and do the research. Read, read. I have, I don't know, half a dozen books that I've read through several times. Um, Voiceover voice actor by, by Yuri and Tara. Um, I know a lot of people have probably read that in the industry. Um,
The Art of Voice Acting.
the art of, okay, is that what?
That's another one that everybody like calls
Okay,
that the Bible.
okay, all
I
right,
don't remember the authors. James Alberger? Al,
okay.
something like, I don't really remember, but
Um,
that's what it's called.
My life as a 10-year-old boy was another one that I go to. Nancy Cartwright's book, go to often, just to kind of remind myself that it is worth it. um but yeah, do your research, read as much as possible, connect with people, um because honestly, even in this day and age, people are going to surprise you, about how much they're willing to offer you if you're willing to, befriend them and offer things to them.
I think that's a good note to end on. Thank you. Not everybody is okay with being open enough to talk about their mental health and talk about their journey and um, overcoming their insecurities and fears and making something of themselves. And
Yeah,
that's super important because
it
almost
is.
everybody goes through it.
It is. And that's one of the hard lessons I learned in the last few years, is that you've got to be open. I mean, and that's, I know, recently on TikTok, there have been a lot of, advocates for men's mental health, because, the stereotypical, oh, I've got to be the rock in the relationship and all this stuff. Yeah, you can't be. You're going to implode.
Don't bottle it up, guys. Nobody likes it when it's bottled.
And it doesn't have, yeah. Guys, girls, anybody, don't bottle it up. Find a therapist, find a family member.
Learn to use communication skills.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who don't know how to communicate, but have never actually tried to learn how to communicate better with family and friends, and end up just holding everything in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then exploding one day, and everybody's like, "Whoa, what the heck? What's going on?"
Yep. No, that was me.
Mm-hmm. It's probably been me too a couple of times, but like I said, it happens to the best of us, and you just got to learn how to deal with it and make yourself better. Improvement and growth, some of the most important things that you can do.
Definitely.
Thank you, Brian, for joining us. And if you are good to go, if you don't have anything else for us, then I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.